There was no statistical evidence that these extra screenings improved security. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Can we release this data publicly?" Gabriella smirked. "Not only can we have to." Marcus took a deep breath. He knew that publishing this report meant he wasn't just taking on Chen, he was challenging an entire system that had been operating this way for decades. But he had no choice. "Schedule a second press conference," Marcus said, his voice resolute. "I'm telling the country the truth." Gabriella nodded. "I'll handle it." "Are you sure?" James Washington remained in the doorway, arms crossed. "Are you sure about this? You're going up against forces bigger than you realize, Marcus." Marcus locked eyes with him. "I know," he said slowly, "but if I don't do it, who will?" Outside, the sky darkened as rain began to fall. Marcus stood in front of the Department of Homeland Security headquarters, preparing for the most critical press conference of his career. In his hands was a folder, a collection of indisputable evidence that exposed racial bias in airport security screenings. Numbers that couldn't be ignored. Gabriella rushed up to him, eyes glued to her phone, her voice urgent. "Marcus, this is bigger than we thought. The FBI just contacted me." Marcus froze. "The FBI?" "Yes, a source inside says someone within the system is actively trying to stop your investigation." A sharp chill ran down his spine. "What exactly are they planning?" Gabriella swallowed hard. "Political pressure, distorting facts, and worse, they might try to destroy your career." Marcus tightened his grip on the file. He had expected pushback, but not this fast. The press conference. Marcus stepped onto the podium. Before him sat hundreds of reporters, cameras rolling, microphones ready. He exhaled. This was the moment. The U.S. airport security system is failing, and today, I will show you why. The screen behind him lit up, displaying a statistical breakdown. Black travelers are 300% more likely to be randomly screened than white travelers. 80% of racial discrimination complaints come from Black and Latino passengers. No evidence suggests these screenings improve security. The room fell into stunned silence. "I didn't create these numbers," Marcus continued. "This is data from the very system we are supposed to trust, and that means the system has been broken for a long time." A journalist raised her hand. "Director Richardson, do you have proof that this is intentional discrimination?" Marcus met her gaze, then looked straight into the cameras. "I am the proof." A murmur spread through the crowd. If the Director of Homeland Security can be treated like a criminal simply because of the color of his skin, then who among you can be sure it won't happen to you? Silence. "And that is why I will not back down. I will keep investigating. I will keep demanding change." Marcus leaned in toward the microphone, his voice calm but razor sharp. "And if anyone out there thinks they can silence me, I have one thing to say. Try me." The room erupted, reporters shouting over each other, cameras flashing in a frenzy, America now fully tuned in. Less than an hour later, Gabriella burst into Marcus's office. "We have a problem." Marcus glanced up from his screen where he was watching news commentary. "What now?" Gabriella slammed her laptop onto his desk and hit play. The Department of Homeland Security is now facing allegations of classified information leaks. Marcus's eyes narrowed. "What?" Gabriella gritted her teeth. "They're accusing you of leaking data." A cold weight settled in the room. Marcus slowly leaned back in his chair, forcing himself to remain calm. "They're trying to paint me as a traitor." Gabriella nodded. "They want to take you down before you can change the system." Marcus inhaled deeply. "Then we fight back." When family becomes the target. That night, as Marcus walked through the front door of his home, he immediately felt something was wrong. Elise stood in the kitchen, gripping an envelope. Her eyes were red, her expression tight. Marcus hurried over. "What's wrong?" She said nothing, just handed him the envelope. He tore it open, and a single sheet of paper slid onto the counter. "Stop now, or you will pay the price. Your family will too." Marcus felt a chill settle deep into his bones. Elise folded her arms, her voice raw with anger. "We cannot live like this, Marcus. They're threatening us, inside our own home." He swallowed hard. "I know, but if I stop now, everything we've fought for will mean nothing." Elise studied him for a long moment, then exhaled. "Just promise me one thing. Anything. Promise me you'll be careful. Not for yourself, for us." Marcus nodded. "I promise." But deep down, he knew this battle was about to be even more dangerous. A call from the shadows. The next morning, Marcus received a call from an unknown number. Director Richardson? Yes, who is this? A deep voice came through the line. This is Agent Rivera, FBI. I need to meet with you, immediately. Marcus straightened. About what? Your life. A cold wave ran down his spine. I'll be there. He already knew. This wasn't just about racial profiling anymore. This was something bigger, darker. A black SUV pulled up in front of a small cafe on the outskirts of D.C. Marcus stepped out, inhaling deeply before walking inside. At the back of the cafe, a middle-aged man with silver hair sat waiting. His suit was simple but sharp, not flashy, not forgettable. He didn't look like a typical FBI agent, no sunglasses, no stiff demeanor. But his eyes carried the weight of someone who had seen too much. Marcus pulled out a chair. I'm Marcus Richardson. The man nodded. I know, I'm Agent Rivera. Marcus leaned in. You said my life was in danger? Rivera stirred his coffee, his voice quiet but razor sharp. Not just yours, your family's too. The air in the cafe seemed to thicken. Someone wants you silenced, Director Richardson. Marcus's grip tightened. Who? Rivera glanced around, as if assessing the room for listening ears, then leaned in closer. A powerful group within the system. They don't want your investigation into racial bias at airports to continue, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to stop you. A cold shiver ran through Marcus's spine. I expected pushback. But I didn't think they'd go this far. Rivera nodded grimly. I've worked cases like this before, and I have reason to believe the people you're up against aren't just conservative hardliners. They may have connections outside the government. Marcus leaned back, his mind racing. If Rivera was right, this wasn't just about policy. This was about power and control. Do you have proof? Rivera reached into his pocket and pulled out a small USB drive, placing it on the table. I can't say much more. But inside this, you'll find what you need to understand the kind of enemy you're facing. Marcus took the drive, his grip firm. Why are you helping me? Rivera let out a dry chuckle. Because I believe in justice, and because I don't want to see another body drop just for trying to do the right thing. Back home, Marcus locked his office door, plugged the USB drive into his laptop, and waited as a series of files loaded onto the screen. Internal emails, surveillance reports, audio recordings of private meetings. His pulse quickened as he clicked on an audio file. A voice echoed through his office, cold and calculating. Richardson is becoming a problem. If we don't act soon, he's going to bring this entire system down. Marcus's jaw clenched. He wasn't just fighting for justice anymore. He was fighting to survive. The air in the conference room remained heavy long after David Chen had walked out. Marcus sat motionless, his mind racing. Chen never had to say a direct threat. His words carried enough weight on their own. He wasn't afraid, because he believed the system would protect him. Marcus couldn't let that happen. He stood abruptly, pulled out his phone, and dialed Gabriella. Set up a meeting with the Attorney General and the National Security Advisor. He instructed. I have proof of political interference and misconduct within the Department of Homeland Security. Gabriella inhaled sharply. Marcus, if you go public with this, you'll be taking on the most powerful forces in Washington. Marcus exhaled slowly, staring at the empty chair across the table, the one Chen had just occupied. I don't have a choice. By the afternoon, Washington, D.C. was on fire. Major news networks flashed headlines. Homeland Security Director accuses senior officials of corruption, names David Chen. Leaked evidence suggests political interference in TSA security policies. White House remains silent amid explosive allegations. Marcus's office became a war room. His team scrambled to manage press statements, legal responses, and security concerns. Then the call came. Gabriella burst into the room. It's the president's office. Marcus picked up immediately. Mr. President, get to the White House, now. The line went dead. Marcus glanced at Gabriella, then at James Washington. They didn't need to say it. This was the moment. Inside the Oval Office, the tension was suffocating. President Wilson sat at his desk, his fingers interlocked, his expression unreadable. To his left was the Attorney General. To his right, the National Security Advisor. Marcus stood his ground. You've put me in a hell of a position, Marcus, the president said finally. I have governors, senators, and donors calling me non-stop. Do you know what they're asking? Marcus stayed silent. They're asking if my Homeland Security Director is trying to destroy the system he was hired to protect. Marcus clenched his jaw. With all due respect, sir, I'm trying to fix it. The Attorney General leaned forward. You have no idea what you've started, Marcus. You named David Chen in a federal investigation. Do you realize how many people are now at risk? Marcus didn't flinch. That's the point. They've been at risk for years. The president sighed. What exactly do you want? Marcus locked eyes with him. I want a full-scale independent investigation into TSA's racial profiling practices. I want the people behind this corruption exposed, and I want the system reformed so this never happens again. The room fell into a thick silence. Then the president leaned back, exhaling. Fine. Marcus froze. He'd expected pushback. Not this. You'll get your investigation. But understand this, Marcus. The president's gaze sharpened. You just made yourself the most powerful enemy in Washington. Marcus nodded. I know. That evening, Marcus stood before a live press conference. Millions watched. The time for silence is over. Behind him, his family, Elise, Layla, Marcus Jr. stood united. This fight is bigger than me. This fight is about every traveler who has been treated unfairly, every American who has been judged before they even spoke. Today, we take a stand, and I will not stop until justice is served. The crowd erupted, but Marcus knew. This war was far from over, because when you take on the system fights back. Marcus stared at the screen, watching as his own words were twisted, edited, and reassembled to paint him as a traitor to America. Richardson is undermining national security, pushing a dangerous political agenda. How can we trust a man who would rather tear down our safety than protect it? His hands clenched into fists. This wasn't just an attack. It was a coordinated assault on his reputation, his career, his life. Gabriella exhaled sharply. This video has already hit 2 million views in the last hour. Fox News just ran a segment on it. They're saying you're a security threat. Marcus took a deep breath. This was expected, but it didn't make it any less infuriating. James Washington entered, his face grim. It's not just the media. Congress is now getting involved. Some senators are demanding hearings. They want to investigate you. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. Of course. They want to turn this around, James continued. Make it look like you're the one under investigation. Gabriella frowned. They're trying to bury the real issue. If they can discredit Marcus, they can kill the investigation before it even begins. Marcus's jaw tightened. Then we don't give them the chance. James sighed. What's your move? Marcus looked them both in the eye. We fight back. That night, Marcus went live on national television. Sitting across from an anchor on 60 Minutes, he leaned forward, his voice steady, his gaze unwavering. Let's be clear about what's happening here. He locked eyes with the camera. I uncovered systemic discrimination in TSA security screenings. I exposed corruption at the highest levels. And now, those who benefit from that corruption are trying to silence me. The anchor shifted in her seat. Your critics say you're making this about race rather than national security. Marcus didn't blink. They say that because they want to avoid the real issue. This isn't just about race. It's about power. It's about accountability. It's about the fact that our system is broken. And instead of fixing it, they'd rather attack the people trying to change it. The room fell silent for a beat. Then the anchor asked, What do you say to those who call you a traitor? Marcus's eyes burned with conviction. I say that I have spent my entire life protecting this country. I have served in the FBI. I have worked in counterterrorism, and I was appointed to lead Homeland Security because I know what it takes to keep America safe. His voice dropped, sharp and controlled. The real traitors are the ones who would rather let corruption thrive than admit the truth. The segment went viral. The backlash was immediate. Supporters rallied behind Marcus. Civil rights leaders, former government officials, and even some moderate conservatives defended him. But his enemies doubled down. The next morning, the headlines were relentless. Congress to hold hearings on Marcus Richardson's actions. Did Homeland Security's director leak classified information? Anonymous source, FBI probing Richardson's alleged misconduct. Marcus tossed the newspaper onto his desk. They're throwing everything at me. Gabriella exhaled. They're scared. James crossed his arms. So what now? Marcus straightened his tie. Now, we push forward. The congressional hearing. 1 week later, Marcus stood before the Senate Oversight Committee. The chamber was packed. Cameras rolled. Politicians sharpened their knives. Senator Thompson, a staunch opponent of Marcus's investigation, leaned forward. "Mr. Richardson, do you deny leaking classified information?" Marcus met his gaze head-on. "I deny any wrongdoing." Thompson smirked. "Then, why is there an ongoing FBI investigation into your actions?" Marcus's voice was calm but unyielding. "Because when powerful people feel threatened, they use every tool at their disposal to destroy their opposition." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Thompson narrowed his eyes. "Are you saying this is a conspiracy against you?" Marcus didn't flinch. "I'm saying that I exposed the truth about TSA's discriminatory practices, and instead of addressing that truth, certain people would rather attack me." Thompson shuffled his papers. "Then let me ask you directly. Do you believe the TSA's security measures are racist?" Marcus sat forward. "I believe that security should be based on behavior, not skin color, and I have the data to prove that's not what's happening." He gestured to a document in front of him. The evidence was undeniable. More than 80% of TSA complaints came from people of color. Black and brown travelers were 3 times more likely to be selected for random screenings. And yet, there was no statistical proof that these screenings increased security. Senator Thompson cleared his throat. "Well, the committee will review this data." But Marcus knew they already had. They just didn't want to acknowledge it. When the hearing ended, reporters swarmed him. "Director Richardson, do you feel this investigation is politically motivated? Do you still have the president's support? Do you think you'll keep your job?" Marcus stopped, turned to face them. "I don't care about politics. I care about making this country safer. And the only way to do that is by fixing a broken system." And then he walked away. That night, Elise found him in his home office, staring out the window. "Marcus." He turned. Her face was worried, but her eyes were strong. "They won't stop, will they?" she whispered. Marcus exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "No, they won't." Elise walked forward, taking his hands in hers. "Then don't let them break you." Marcus swallowed. "I won't." But deep down he knew. The war had only just begun. Marcus paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle over the crowd. The storm was no longer just his, it belonged to the entire country now. "This is not just about me," he continued, voice steady. "This is about every American who has ever been unfairly targeted. Every traveler who has been stopped, searched, and humiliated for nothing more than the color of their skin." He leaned forward, gripping the podium. "And now, when we finally shine a light on the truth, those in power would rather threaten my family than face accountability." The reporters erupted with questions, but Marcus raised a hand, commanding silence. "I have a message for them," he said, locking eyes with the cameras. "You can try to intimidate me. You can spread lies. You can even put my family in danger. But you will not silence me." Applause broke out from the crowd, something rare at a press conference. But Marcus wasn't done. "In the coming days, I will release every piece of evidence we have gathered, and I will not stop until this system is reformed, until fairness, not fear, defines our security policies." His voice dropped to a near whisper, yet it echoed louder than ever. "I am not afraid of you." The cheering grew louder. The momentum was no longer just his, it was America's fight now. As Marcus stepped away from the podium, Gabriella pulled him aside. "That was powerful. But you just put an even bigger target on your back," he nodded, wiping a bead of sweat from his forehead. "I know. That's why we have to move fast." James Washington walked up, his face grim. "The DOJ is getting involved. The president's been briefed. Things are escalating." Marcus exhaled. "Good. Let's make sure they don't sweep this under the rug." As he turned to leave, his phone buzzed, a blocked number. He hesitated, then answered. A low, controlled voice spoke. "You should have walked away, Richardson." The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone, heart pounding. They weren't finished yet. As the screen fades to black, the words appear. "This is more than just a story. It's a reality for millions. If you believe in justice, if you believe in truth, stand up. Speak out. Like, share, and subscribe to Aiva Stories to hear the voices that need to be heard. Drop a comment below. Let's talk about this. Would you have stood your ground like Marcus? Don't let them rewrite the narrative. Subscribe now, because the fight isn't over. Subscribe here, Aiva Stories. The screen fades to black. The fight may have ended for now, but the truth is just beginning. The underground parking garage was eerily silent, the hum of distant traffic the only sound echoing off the concrete walls. Marcus stepped forward, his footsteps sharp against the cold floor. Ahead, a single car sat idling, its taillights casting an ominous red glow. James stood beside it, arms crossed, face unreadable. Beside him, a man Marcus didn't recognize, FBI Special Agent Rivera. Marcus wasted no time. "Tell me you have enough to take him down." Rivera nodded, producing a small recording device. "This is the nail in his coffin." He pressed play. Chen's voice crackled through the speaker. "Richardson thinks he's untouchable? He has no idea how deep we've buried this system. If he doesn't stop, we'll make him disappear." A second voice answered. "And if he still won't? Then we give him a reason to stop. Permanently." Marcus clenched his jaw. He had suspected, but hearing it made the threat real. Rivera shut off the device. "With this, we can get a federal warrant. We can arrest Chen." James exhaled. "We finally have him." Marcus wasn't convinced. "It's not enough." Rivera blinked. "What do you mean?" "This is conspiracy to commit murder. It's a federal offense." Marcus shook his head. "Chen isn't just one man. He's part of a network, a system that will bury the evidence the moment he's arrested. We need more." James frowned. "Then what are you suggesting?" Marcus looked between them. "We don't just take down Chen, we expose everything." Silence. Then Rivera nodded. "I know just how to do it." The following morning, the world woke up to breaking news. CNN headline: "Live leaked recording exposes government conspiracy against DHS Director Marcus Richardson." The video was everywhere. Marcus, standing before the cameras, holding the recording device. "This is the voice of David Chen, a high-ranking official in the TSA, conspiring to have me eliminated. Not just to silence me, but to protect a system designed to target black and brown Americans every day." The screen cut to the recording. Chen's voice played for the entire nation to hear. Social media erupted. "This is bigger than one man. This is corruption at the highest level. Marcus Richardson risked everything to expose the truth. We stand with him." If this is happening to the head of DHS, imagine what happens to regular citizens. At 9:17 a.m., the Department of Justice announced an immediate investigation. At 10:45 a.m., the FBI raided David Chen's office. By 12:32 p.m., David Chen was in handcuffs. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood before the Senate Judiciary Committee, testifying about the deep corruption within the TSA and the Department of Homeland Security. His battle wasn't over, but he had won the first war. As he left the Capitol that evening, Elise was waiting for him. She didn't say anything, just wrapped her arms around him. Marcus held her tight, breathing in the moment. He had risked everything. But in the end, justice had prevailed. James' SUV was already parked, engine running. As Marcus approached, James rolled down the window. "You sure about this?" James asked, his tone grave. Marcus nodded, opening the door and stepping inside. "There's no turning back now." James handed him a thick folder. "FBI just sent me this. It's a list of everyone involved in the conspiracy against you. It's not just Chen, it runs much deeper." Marcus opened the file. The first name on the list made his breath hitch. Howard Kingston, Director of the National Security Agency, NSA. Senator Mitchell Hawthorne, Chairman of the Senate Homeland Security Committee. David Chen, former Director of the Transportation Security Administration, TSA. Several high-ranking officials in the Department of Defense and the CIA. A chill ran down Marcus's spine. This wasn't just political warfare, this was a silent coup. He looked at James. "They're manipulating the entire government." James nodded. "And if you don't stop them, they'll keep tightening their grip." Marcus clenched the file in his hands. "Then what do we do?" James exhaled heavily. "I called someone who can help us." Marcus frowned. "Who?" James gestured toward another car that had just pulled up. The door opened, and Special Agent Rivera from the FBI stepped out. Rivera approached. His expression hardened. He had chosen a side. "Richardson, we don't have much time," Rivera said sharply. Marcus folded his arms. "I'm listening." Rivera lowered his voice, scanning the area as if someone might be listening. "They're planning to eliminate you. Not politically, permanently." A cold wave washed over Marcus. "When?" Rivera glanced at his watch. "Less than 48 hours." James clenched his jaw. "We have to move now." Rivera pulled out a small USB drive and handed it to Marcus. This contains everything: recorded calls, emails, classified internal memos. If you release it, they'll have nowhere to hide. Marcus stared at the tiny device, feeling its weight. He wasn't just holding a flash drive. He was holding the fate of a nation. Then we release it. Rivera shook his head. It's not that simple. They control the media. They control the justice system. If you send this to the press, it'll be buried before the public ever sees it. Marcus narrowed his eyes. Then how do we do it? Rivera met his gaze. You go live, yourself. The next morning, 9 a.m. Marcus sat in his office, the live stream set up and ready. He glanced at the screen. Thousands of viewers were already tuning in. James stood behind him, arms crossed. Rivera was there too, prepared to provide any evidence necessary. Marcus took a deep breath. This was the moment he couldn't afford to mess up. He looked straight into the camera and started the live broadcast to the entire country. Good morning, America. My name is Marcus Richardson. I am the Director of Homeland Security, and today, I need you to hear the truth. The comment section exploded, viewers increasing by the second. Today, I'm exposing a conspiracy unfolding within our own government. He held up the USB drive to the camera. This contains evidence of individuals who have manipulated our national security system for personal gain. The same individuals who have threatened me, my family, and have even plotted my assassination. Marcus clicked on the file containing a secret meeting recording of David Chen and his co-conspirators. If Richardson keeps going, we'll make him disappear. The live stream exploded. Oh my God, is this real? What the hell is happening to this country? Where is the FBI? Why isn't anyone stopping this? Comments flooded in, and the number of viewers soared past 3 million. Marcus pressed forward. These people have tried to undermine justice, abusing their power to control America in their own image, but I won't let them. He uploaded all the classified data to a secure platform, sharing the link directly with the public. Now you know the truth. Don't let it be buried. Within minutes, major news outlets, CNN, The Washington Post, BBC were breaking the story. Marcus closed his eyes. The war had begun. The president calls. Not long after the live stream ended, Marcus's phone rang. President Wilson. He picked up. Marcus, you just triggered the biggest political storm in U.S. history. Marcus remained firm. What are you going to do about it? The president paused for a moment. Then his voice came steady and certain. I'm going to do the right thing. Within 2 hours, the FBI raided David Chen's office. David Chen arrested for conspiracy to manipulate national security. High-ranking officials suspended pending investigation. Marcus Richardson has changed history. Marcus sank into his chair, exhaling. The battle wasn't completely over, but he had just won the most crucial victory. James patted his shoulder. You did what no one thought was possible. Marcus looked out the window, where the sky was finally clear again. He had fought, and he had won. But he knew the system wouldn't change overnight, and the fight wasn't over yet. Marcus Richardson stood at his office window, gazing over Washington, D.C. The political storm had passed, but its aftershocks still lingered. David Chen had been sentenced. The officials involved in the conspiracy had either resigned or were under investigation. Congress was now debating a new bill to protect citizens from abuse of power within national security agencies. But Marcus knew this wasn't the end. There would always be those who tried to twist justice for their own benefit. There would always be forces that fought to protect their privileges at all costs. But now, the people had seen the truth. He turned back to his desk, where a framed photo of his family sat. Elise, Lila, Marcus Jr. They were the reason he never stopped fighting. His phone rang. Gabriella, you ready? Marcus took a deep breath. Always. He grabbed his coat and stepped out of his office. The battle continued, but this time he wasn't alone. This isn't just Marcus Richardson's story. It's all of ours. We live in a world where justice isn't always easy to achieve. But that doesn't mean we should stop fighting. Truth, persistence, and courage can change everything. If this story moved you, share this video and comment your thoughts below. And if you want to hear more powerful stories like this, subscribe to Aiva Stories today. Because sometimes, all we need is a story to remind us that change is possible. Hit that subscribe button now. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss the next story. See you in the next video.